Hey everyone, welcome back to the Teach Yourself podcast. Excited for today's special guest, Megan Devito. She's a certified life coach. She's helping ambitious women live the life that they want to, changing habits one thought and one step at a time. Megan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to get to know you some more. I
Yeah.
spent this morning going through some of your content on your Instagram, listened to your most recent podcast episode, and kind of
Mm.
scrolling around on your website. And I don't know, I got excited for talking to you and learning from you and hearing what you have to share. So before I get ahead of myself, I just
Mhm.
want you to kind of tell me and everyone listening just kind of what you do and the journey that brought you there.
Yeah, so I am a life coach and I help women who are stuck. They kind of trip over their thoughts or their habits. I help them move forward so they can get towards whatever that goal is for them. And I say ambitious, and really when we talk about ambitious people, it's just people who want something and who are willing to work for it. So whatever it is that they want. I've coached people on moving out of their corporate career and doing something entirely different. And I've coached other people on how to be able to hang out with their kids and not be distracted by their phone. So both of those are great goals. And I just tell people really it's kind of fun. I get to be like a Santa. I just get to like get you what you want, which is it's a really great job. And I ended up coaching mostly women who are anxious, stressed, overwhelmed, things like that, because I was one for a long time. I was an anxious kid, I was an anxious teenager, all the way until I was about 40 years old. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, I felt really good for a really long time now. And I just started going back and looking at all the things that had happened in my life that got me to where I was without having to do too much deep dive work, which I think is, I mean, obviously it's everyone has a different approach, but I know that what I've done works for me. It works for my clients. And now I went and got my health coaching certifications, my life coaching certifications, and that was how I got here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said about ambition. I just listened to your, like I said, your most recent episode, and I know you've
Hmm.
dove more into that. And you defined it as just working for, like you said, working for, what's important to you and that's in line with your values. And I love that. I thought that was an awesome way to put it and a great way to help people prioritize the things that they're truly wanting to do, especially for setting goals and finding direction. um I took your quiz this morning
Oh, you
just
did.
to be curious to see what it was.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for me it was even insightful. I realize it's not meant for, not well, I guess it works for everybody, but your ideal audience is obviously women and that are working on those things. But for me it was super insightful, even just
Mm.
that quick quiz and seeing those different things. And so some of the things that you prioritized in that quiz were time management.
Mhm.
um See if I can remember everything. Well, I'll just kind of let you explain, but what what made you kind of lean into those different areas of helping people and recognizing that they had issues there?
Yeah. And I think that I like it that you took it because certainly, yes, I mostly talk to women because I feel like, at least with talking about emotions, women are generally a little bit more open than guys are. But yeah, it does apply to men as well because we're all doing life. Life is busy. We're all out there. I mean, we're trying to work. We're trying to have a life at home outside of work. Some people have kids. Other people have responsibilities with their extended families, and we're just trying to make everything happen. And then if we take all of those basic requirements that we have, and then we throw other things like chaos that's happening all around us all the time, whether it's political chaos or it's environmental chaos, we've got news cycles, we've got all these things, and then when the day is over, to calm ourselves down, we dive into social media, which just adds a whole nother layer of crap on top of everything we're already dealing with. So we get overwhelmed really quickly. We already know from every study in the world that it's making people more stressed out and more anxious. They're seeing everything that everyone else is doing. And they're like, what about me? I'm just sitting here feeling like crap. What's wrong with me? And the truth is, they're just feeling as bad as you. They just have a prettier timeline, right? Like they're just showing you the best parts. So when we start looking at what the collective world is experiencing, we're all overwhelmed. We're all stressed. We're all anxious. If not chronically, then at least more often than we used to be. So it just seems like one of those things. If I can help one person figure out how to manage how their body feels, and to stop overthinking, to lower that stress level, and they can teach somebody else, we can knock this out. And it's so needed right now, whether we're talking about a 5 year old, like a kindergartner, or we're talking about somebody that's 85 years old. Everybody needs this right now because we're all just in the middle of some big feelings, I guess.
I couldn't agree more. And I love that how you pointed out, once you learn it for yourself, you can help other people to do it.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
think I think that's the most powerful thing. If we're getting the help that we need and then we're sharing that with others, some way, shape, or form, everybody's going to get helped. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to feel even just a little bit better. So I think that's perfect. Um, how do you like what's your process for going into coaching different clients, because you said like you'll
Mhm,
get people that are going through a phase, maybe they're transitioning out of a different career to maybe starting their own business or doing something completely different,
mhm.
or even just moms that want to disengage from their phone and be more present with their kids. How do you prepare and process and think like this is what this person needs?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that. So, depending on which coach you work with, a lot of coaches they'll have a program that they'll take people through. This is my step, 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 step. I don't do it that way because even though everybody might come to me and say, I'm just so stressed out, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. Everybody's problem, especially when we're talking about how they're handling their life, is very specific to them. They may all be coming for stress. They may all be coming because they feel overwhelmed or anxious or sad or anything else. But working through that, it's very situational on what's happening in your life. What are you thinking about yourself that's keeping you in this place, because all the time it goes back to this is what I think is going to happen, or this is what I think people think about me, or this is what I think about if I were to do this thing. So really my process on getting people from where they are to where they're headed is always starting with, let's talk about what you want, and let's make sure we know what you want instead of what you don't want. Because if we're continuously focusing on what we don't want, that's what our brain has been told to see. So the more we say, oh, I just don't want to be asked to work this many hours, inevitably every time something happens, we're like, see, there it is again. There it is again. So we just want to shift your brain a tiny bit to what it is that you're looking for. So we start by setting some goals. Life coaching is always very forward focused, and it's about getting you from A to B. It's not about the whole therapy portion, which is entirely something that I don't do. Like, I'm not diagnosing people. I'm not saying, oh, you have anxiety, you have depression. I'm just saying, this is how you feel. Let's move forward. So we start with, let's look at what we want. And the next thing I do is really help them say, okay, let's talk about how your body feels. Because we're very quick sometimes as coaches in general to go straight to the thoughts. But what's really important, especially from somebody who lived with a lot of years of anxiety, like really diagnosed generalized anxiety disorder, is that it's in your body. It feels awful. And whether you have the big thoughts or you have all of the big feelings inside of you, we have to be able to calm your body down first, because when you have those feelings inside of your body, your brain doesn't work anyway. It just shuts off. You're in that, whether you're really stressed, you're overwhelmed, or you are in fight or flight, that thinking portion of your brain, that part in the front, it's off. It does not work. So it's kind of like when somebody, let's say someone's really anxious and they're like, just breathe and think rationally. What? They're already breathing and it's impossible. Like, they can't. So what we really want to do is say, whoa, whoa, let's calm this down. And then we'll start talking about, like, okay, now what do you think? What do you think about what just happened, or about that whole problem that you are dealing with right now? Let's deal with the feelings. Then we'll deal with the thoughts, and we'll say, all right, what's one thing you could do differently that you feel like you can handle today? And if they say nothing, I can't handle anything, we dig a little deeper. And it's always getting to, what do you actually think? And once we get there, then we can start saying, oh, do you think that's true? I mean, what's worst case scenario? What's best case scenario? What do you want to try? So we just move forward one little tiny step at a time so that we don't go back and freak their brain out again. And once that happens, they start building confidence and they start saying, oh, wait a second, I can actually do this. And through that entire process, what's really happening is that their brain is kind of rewiring itself. So instead of always looking for what's not working, it starts to find things that are working, or even this is actually really going well for me. Oh, I noticed the last time I had this action that I wanted to do it again, but I chose a different way. And it's really just their brain saying, let's try this new thing.
That approach is wonderful. I think, helping it seems like you get to help them find their own solutions versus, pushing all these different things on them. And
Mhm.
I mean, I know for me, when I can find my own solutions, whether or not people help me to discover them, for when I'm the one that decides it's my solution, it becomes so much more powerful for myself, so much more impactful,
Mhm.
and my ability to complete it and make it happen is a hundred times better than any other way. So I think
Yeah.
that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it really is. It's so different when you can realize that you had the answer all along and you're like, oh, I see what's going on in here. Like I'm onto myself now because once you're onto yourself, it doesn't just apply to that problem. It starts applying to all the other problems too. And really, everybody really does know what's best for them. And even when they think they don't know the right answer, there's a little tiny part of them that totally knows what they need to do. They're just afraid sometimes to do it. It feels like I might be embarrassed. Somebody might yell at me, something awful. I'm imagining some horrible situation that's going to happen. But when push comes to shove, we really do know. We just have to learn to trust ourselves. So yeah, you're right. Like coming up with it yourself is always the best. Yeah.
And what would you say is like a good little tip, a good practice to have that trust in yourself? Because like you said, we know it, but
Mhm.
what's a good little trick that can help people take confidence in that they do in fact know?
I like that. So one of the simplest things people can do, and it does take intention, right? Like we do have to want to do this because old habits die hard. I mean, they're always going to be there, and your brain's going to want to do the same thing and think the same thing over and over again. But just start pushing your brain in the direction you want it to go. And I always picture like if you are driving, if you're driving the car, right, and if you decide where it's going, then you're going. But if you let go, the car's just going to go off the road or off the cliff. So you want to make sure you're driving your brain where you want it to go. So when you notice that it starts telling you, well, this didn't work, or that won't work, or this will end up badly, whatever that is, just starting to keep track of everything instead of noticing what's not working. At the end of every day, write down something that worked for you. Like just one thing can really start pushing those neurons in that direction instead of always going the other direction. So, what's one thing that actually worked out for me today? And in the beginning, it might be something as simple as I didn't get a speeding ticket on the way to work, which maybe you've never had a speeding ticket in your life, but if that's the only thing you can come up with, that's okay because your brain's like, this isn't how we do this. But we're going to force it to say, no, there was something, at least one thing that went my way today, or one thing I was right about, one thing that went well for me, one thing that I'm grateful for. And we start with just one thing. And then maybe a week later, you do, oh, wait a second. You know what? Two things actually went really well for me today. And pretty soon you get, I mean, not very, 3 weeks down the road, and you're like, wow, it was actually a really good day. I saw all these things. I mean, there were a scattering of things over here that weren't so great, but overall, this was great. That's really how it's done. I mean, it doesn't happen in one day, but it does not take that long for your brain to start to change and to notice those things.
Definitely. I think there's so much more positive energy loaded into one good thing versus, 5 to 10 bad things. If we can find, just those one to
Yeah.
two, it's going to overcome the many more bad things that have probably happened. But I love that focus. I love
Yeah.
that focus.
And we don't want to go down that whole toxic positivity, like lying to yourself thing either, right? Like, oh, it was the best day ever. And I feel like I could have won $1 million. No, 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 no. Let's just be real because your brain knows that you're lying. This is really why affirmations don't work for most people because they say them over and over again, but there's not a single part of them that believes it. So you can say, I am a millionaire, I am a millionaire, I am a millionaire over and over, and your brain's like, no, you're not. You're a liar. This is never going to happen. So what we have to do is we have to find like little ways that like, I found a nickel on the ground today. Oh my gosh, check it out. Somebody paid for my coffee and starting to pay attention to those things. That's much more powerful than repeating something you don't believe.
That, yeah, I mean, I think we could mic drop there. That's, that's,
Thanks.
I think that's, that's a perspective you don't hear a lot of people talking about. Everyone's just like, oh, you guys got to say all these different things. You just gotta believe it. And it's so true. Like, you're lying to yourself because it's not
Yeah.
the reality yet. it's
Yeah.
not that you can't be there, but you find the little truths that are building up to the big one, and
Mhm.
that's what gets you there. That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Um, I was listening to your podcast, your last episode, and you were talking about goals. And because of the clientele that you work with, you help them set different goals in so many different places. And so I
Mhm.
loved what you said about how our goals are good because they're our goals. And like
Mhm.
that's what makes it important. So
Yeah.
I just want to hear some more thoughts on that. Like why that's so meaningful and important to you.
Yeah. So we can do this one really easily. So I am a 48-year-old woman and you are a young guy. If we had the same goals, that would be weird. Right? Like your goals are your goals, and that's amazing. And I absolutely believe that everybody was created to do something incredible in this world. Like we all have a mission, we have a purpose, and we have our own thing. Like I think we were gifted to do things. But what I was created to do and what you were created to do, probably not the same. So it would be so weird, honestly, or just awkward for everybody to be like, this is the goal. Because it's not. I mean, I've had dads tell me that, like, all I do is like I come home and I grab my phone because I'm so stressed out from work and I scroll and I've missed out on my kids' lives. And I hate that. I just don't want to do that anymore. So for that guy, that was the perfect goal. I've had other people that have come and said, listen to me, I hate my corporate job and I know that I could do a better job than my boss and I want to go after that. And I've coached that woman on that. And that, because she's like, no, I've got this, like, it's perfect. I work remote. I'm with my kid during the day. I can be really flexible. That's what I want. Like, I want to be, I guess hybrid would be what it was. So it is funny. I mean, I've coached guys on parenting and women on like going straight to the top in their corporate job. And it's really about them and it's what they know is right for them. And to say that everybody's goal, if we look at somebody else's, we're always going to question our own. So if I see this person over here that wants to be like, I don't know, they want to be an influencer, they want to do all these things. And I'm like, oh, maybe that should be my goal. I have zero interest in that, right? Like that's not my thing. And it would be the same as if you watch somebody that was on there and you're like, oh, I don't know, they opened some shop. That's probably what I should be doing. If that's not your thing, that's not your goal. And we need you to do what you know that you need to do.
That's a great explanation. And for you, is that something that you've always been good at, or is that something you've learned over time and that's why you're able to teach it so well?
Yeah. For a really long time, it was hard for me to make goals. I think kind of going back to what I said before about how when you're really anxious, your brain doesn't think creatively. It doesn't think rationally either. So I guess it does kind of think creatively because it comes up with plenty of like worst case scenario thoughts. But to have a thought that you could put into action when everything feels very big or very overwhelming, or I'm so stressed out, I could never achieve that. For a lot of people, just to set or create a goal, it almost feels too big. And so finding ways to be able to say, hey, okay, this sounds like something you're interested in. Why, tell me about why you're telling me, yeah, well, that would be nice, but, or, so for me, I guess when I look back at my life and feeling like I was scrapping to make it through some days where it was like, you know what I want to do? I just want to feel good at the end of the day. That was my goal. But to see something bigger, I mean, I taught school for like 15, 18 years, somewhere like that. So I taught school for a really long time and I knew it was time to get out. But that point in time did not come until I was like fully recovered from anxiety and had this vision of where I wanted to go next so that I could have that foresight to be able to say, oh, wait a second, I actually could do that. Like I could actually create a business. I could actually go out on my own as opposed to staying somewhere where I felt safe. Because when we feel safe, sometimes our brain doesn't like to imagine what else. For other people, that's not a problem because they're not stressed, they're not anxious, and they know exactly where they're going. It's just really, again, person to person.
I think that's a good thing, a good way to put it. And it feels like as I'm listening to you, just it reminds me of someone that I follow. They talk about they don't do goals. They say, I don't set goals. I build habits. And it kind of seems like
Yes.
that's a lot of what you're talking about is we
Hmm.
can build, that daily habit, just making that happen because that's going to push us to our bigger vision. Is that's kind of what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, and I think that that wordplay is really powerful for people, and we don't give it enough credit. But just making a word swap, um, in something that feels a little off to you, or I don't know, that word just feels wrong, or it has got some like weird vibe to it, or it's gross. They can't really put their finger on what it is. Let's think of another word. And sometimes just changing the word, you just pick a different synonym for it. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, that, I got that. So the word is powerful. So whether it is like I'm creating goals or I'm creating habits, I had this exact conversation with my kid last week. And he told me, he's like, no, I'm really working more on getting out of the habits and getting into the goals because habits feel too rigid to me, where goals feel like a place where I'm always moving forward. So for him, that was his thing. But I think goals and habits, it has to be what it is that makes you want to do the work to get there. So semantics, right? Like pick one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And going into that wordplay, something you said in your podcast that really stuck out to me that I wanted to ask you more about is we want to do simple things,
Mhm.
not necessarily easy things. And why is that important for you?
Yeah. Because the easy things don't get us where we're going. It's easy because you're not afraid and it feels safe and comfortable. And anything that anybody's trying to do, if you have a goal or a habit or whatever it is that you're trying to create, and you come to me for help, I'm going to assume that you've already been trying to do it. And because it was hard or because it was complicated, you're not there. If it were easy, you would have done it already, right? But I'm never going to tell somebody, hey, guess what? When you come to me, I'm going to make this anxiety thing a breeze. It's not, right? But it's going to be simple. This is what we do. We check in with our body. We don't believe anything that we think when we feel anxious. And once we're calm, then we move forward. That's always that off ramp. Like it's so simple. I want to make it be structured. So we have a process. It's boom, boom, boom. This is what we do. So you don't have to think about it. I'm making it as simple as possible. Now, for you to take that next step, that's going to take some courage. Whatever it is that you're trying to get to, if it were a breeze, you'd already be there. So easy, I can make it simple. It's just you decide to do this. And then you're going to feel scared and your brain's going to try and sabotage you and tell you every reason not to. And that's when you get to do the brave thing and the thing that feels hard to get you where you want to go. Because sometimes we really do have to do the hard stuff to get where we want to be. And a lot of people just, I feel like we're in this age where everybody's like, oh, but it's so hard. And I'm like, yeah, life's rough. Like it's going to be hard. Everything's going to be hard. I mean, you get married, it's hard. You have kids, it's hard. You graduate from college and have no idea what to do with yourself, it's hard. You retire, it's hard. And that's just the way it is. But hard isn't bad. I think hard is actually, it can be really motivating.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
was talking to my mom yesterday actually about it, and we were talking about, everyone she's noticed with people around her, there's a lot of people that she knows, they don't clean their own house. Like they have someone that comes and cleans their house. They pay someone to do that. But then that creates some anxiety in them because they're not doing the hard thing that maybe they don't particularly enjoy. And so we were just kind of talking about that complex, that doing the hard things in our everyday life is really what brings the little bits of joy that we need to overcome,
Yes.
anxiety, feelings of depression, whatever level that is. But that's really what brings the joy into us, is getting our hands dirty and doing something hard.
Yeah, and we've seen it time and time again when we have people who maybe specifically if there's somebody that's really dealing with depression and I read these posts all the time like on Threads or Instagram or wherever where this person's like I haven't been able to get myself from my bed to my shower in 3 days. I don't know what to do. And then they come back in and like, you guys, I just want to celebrate the fact that I took a shower today. Good. Like that was not easy for them. I mean, we can say, okay, really, I mean, if you're not depressed and you're not in that place, you're kind of like, what, are you kidding me? You couldn't just go take a shower? But for them, that was a big deal. So I think you're right. It can't be something as simple as refusing. Like for some people, it's a refusal to do anything hard, but for other people, it's really like mentally impossible for them. So getting to be able to celebrate that joy that they felt were like, holy crap, I showered. That was a big deal. Like that is joy. And you're right. Like if everything was easy, we would miss out on so much of that stuff that we're really looking for, which is like joy and confidence and freedom and hope and all of that. But you can't have that if you're stuck in the good things all the time. It's just, you got to have the black and the white, right?
Definitely, definitely. That's definitely something for me in the past 5 years as I've, gone into adulthood. Like you said, I'm super young. And so
Mhm.
I'm in that stage where I feel like I know a lot and I'm realizing that I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, just recognizing that a lot of things that I've had in life up to this point were relatively easy. Like I haven't
Mhm.
really had it hard. And then you hit adulthood and it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is hard. Like
Yeah.
my parents weren't kidding. And
Yeah.
but I think more than that, when you're able to then go outside yourself and recognize that everybody else is going through the same thing and
Hmm.
be that source of light and help for them, I think that's a powerful thing too. When you're able
Yeah.
to serve other people, it really lightens the load for yourself. I don't know. What do
Hmm.
you think about that?
Yeah, it does. I mean, they always said, what was it? Like, it's better to give than receive. We learned that, like, or how much fun is it to be able to play Santa or to surprise somebody with something? So we learn it when we're really little. I mean, if you think back to when you were really little and you something as simple as coloring a picture for your mom or your grandma, and you're like, ta-da! And how good it felt to give that to them. We learned that about how much joy and how much like all those good endorphins and those good hormones, that great feeling we get when we can give somebody something or to be able to help them, that's real. And sometimes we get so focused on, I guess my biggest concern with this whole, there's so much me culture out there, and I think there's absolutely benefits to, yes, you have to take care of yourself, please, for crying out loud. You, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. But being able to look outside of that and say, but really, I feel so good when I get to help somebody and they have that breakthrough where it's like, they're like, oh my God, I just realized something, and everything shifts for them. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I got to be a part of that. That was amazing. Because it does. It feels as good as going and giving somebody, giving somebody $5 and buying them coffee at Starbucks. It feels good.
That's yeah, it feels so good. And I take it that's, a lot of the reason you got into what you do now.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if that was a part of what drove you into teaching when you did that in the past.
Yeah. I think teaching was a really natural flow for me. One, because I can't believe I'm going to admit this. I really like spring break and summers off. So I was like, yeah, that seems good. Plus that I love kids. Kids love me. I can teach anybody anything. Like I knew I was good at it before I was ever a teacher. I'm like, I can teach anybody anything and I can coach anybody on anything. I was a swim coach. I'm like, I know how to coach a sport. Surely I can coach a life. So I really felt like that was a very natural thing for me. But I think, especially as my kids were growing up, I always took breaks when my kids were babies because I didn't want to miss out. And I think I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I've been here. It's time to do something else. And it was just, there is a lot of teaching moving from a classroom going into coaching, but also really just facilitating and asking people, tell me what you think and what you believe. So, yeah, I do think part of it was because it just clicked for me, but it is amazing when you see somebody learn something new and when you see them feel really successful. I one time had a student that I was like, you're really smart, And they stopped and they turned around. They were like, nobody has ever said that to me before in my entire life. I was like, wait, what? Ever? And they said, no, never. And just to see that look on their face where they were like, no kidding. Like, she actually thinks I'm smart. That is like some of the best feelings ever. I love that.
Definitely. And I think we learn just so much too when we get to be the one teaching because we have to, I mean, like in any school subject, if you teach it to somebody else, you're going to get better at it. If you teach a habit to somebody else and you help them to learn it how you've learned it, it
Yeah.
just becomes so much more deep for everything that you do.
Mhm.
So, Megan, as we kind of come to a close here, the question I always like to leave with my guests to finish off is if there's like, 1 to 2 big things you've learned in life or that you're learning recently that you could share with your past self, what would those be?
The first one is do not believe everything you think, especially when you feel that inside of you. If I would have known that as a kid, I think the entire trajectory of my life would have been different. I don't even like to go back there because you start playing the what if I, what if I, what if I game, and it's not a good place to go. But I do think like there is a part of me that's like, if I just would have known that one thing, that would have been enormous. So if I can make anybody understand anything, it's like, please do not believe all of your thoughts. We tend to believe them, especially the scary ones. You can choose what you want to hang on to inside your head. And the other one is that everything's going to be okay. And I think that's something that everybody needs to hear right now is like, it's going to be okay. It might be different. It might not be exactly what we thought. It might feel scary until we get there, but it's going to be okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Those are perfect. And for my listeners on here, for anybody that wants to continue to follow and see what you do, or maybe even connect with you and get your services, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's megandevito.com. It's actually getting overhauled right now. I have somebody that's fixing it up and making it look pretty and much, much more professional. So that's a great place. And I am Coach Megan DeVito, just all crammed together, no underscores or anything, all over Instagram, Threads, Facebook. So I also do free Friday coaching. Like if you get on my Facebook page, that if you go to Coach Megan DeVito, there's free Friday coaching. So every Friday, if you just have this thing that you're tripping over for the week, come in there. I'll coach you for free. So it's 9 a.m. Eastern.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely be sure to push that out there and let everybody know. But
Yeah, thank you.
thank you for coming, and everybody that's been listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.